So that gets us into patents now. And patents protect those inventions, those new ideas, which are the lifeblood of colleges and universities. What's a college and a university all about? But advancing thought, advancing knowledge, advancing society. And while universities are not typically in the business to make money off of the work that they're doing to advance that knowledge, there's no reason that they shouldn't, and it advances society as a whole. So it's something to be considered, but there can also be a tension when you're talking about patents, because typically in the private sector, the patents are owned by the company that the person works for. In the university and college setting, very often the schools want to be much more generous to their professors, their faculty, their students who are developing these ideas. So it's something that you want to get a conscious plan ahead of the game before that earth-shattering invention is made, so that you understand and everybody understands who's going to own what and what's going to be done with it once it's developed.
That was actually the situation that the University of Florida faced with a professor who invented a formula for his football team. That formula happened to be Gatorade. The University of Florida didn't want to spend the money on a patent and commercializing that product, so the professor went ahead and did it on his own, which resulted in an actual lawsuit by the University of Florida against the professor when the professor was generating significant revenue from the Gatorade formula. The parties did go through a lot of litigation, and it was resolved, and the University of Florida did walk away with some royalties. But understanding your patentable inventions and knowing what to do with them as a university is really critically important.
Especially for faculty and student relations and even community relations. You always want to avoid a dispute. A dispute is only going to lead to hard feelings, and you don't want hard feelings. Particularly, you have that superstar professor who comes up with that awesome invention, and now neither of you know how that invention is going to be dealt with and who's going to profit from it. So if you get out in front and everybody has the understanding going into it, nobody's disappointed when you go down the road.
That can be an issue too when you really want to differentiate yourself as a college or university with respect to your peers, to attract great faculty and to attract great students. One of the ways that you can actually do that, though, is with your other materials, and that's where copyrights come in. Because copyrights apply to things like your website, to your photography, to the copy on that website, to your admissions brochures. All of those things are items that can stand out and that are protected by law under copyright law.
And of course, then there's the academic research, which would be the lifeblood of the copyrights of again, a college or university. And again, you get into the same ownership issue, because much like patents, if the professor is employed by the college or university, it's the college or university that's going to own that work under what's known as the work made for hire doctrine. And it's arguable that even students, as students under the university, that they too, while not employees, there can be an argument that they are performing like an employee, and that therefore, again, the college or university owns the copyright. Again, most schools like to be more generous than what the law might provide and allow for professors, students, any other type of employee of the college or university to profit or somehow benefit from what they create. So again, you want to get out in front of that issue, address that issue, consider that issue, discuss that issue with your faculty, and decide as a group how you're going to handle that issue. You know, if there are going to be royalties, who's going to get what out of those royalties? Who's going to promote it? What can each side do with it? You know, what's the control over the work? There are a lot of issues that if you work out on the front end, you'll avoid disputes on the back end.
And that raises a good point about copyrights in the educational setting, because there is a common misunderstanding by universities and colleges that whatever they do and whatever they use is fair game under the U.S. Copyright Act, and that's not exactly true. There is a doctrine of fair use, but it is pretty finite and pretty limited. And a lot of the cases that Scott and I both deal with is whether something is fair use, whether a student is choosing to use something and publishing it at the school, or whether a faculty member is. The other issue is marketing your own products and materials, right? So if you have a copyright and you want to proliferate something into the marketplace, the question is who's actually owning the material that you're putting out there? And the copyright analysis is something that we do on a regular basis to try to help educational institutions navigate that tricky water.
And think about it when you're doing your advertising for your school and your promotion of your school. Is that really an educational purpose? No, it's not. It's to attract students, and therefore that's one of the areas where you're not going to get as much of a break for being an educational institution as to whether what you've done is a fair use. The bottom line is if you're taking money out of the pocket of somebody by using their material, it's not likely to be considered a fair use. So you have to be careful when you're using photographs, make sure you've got the appropriate licenses, whether it's from a stock photography house or the particular photographer itself. And any of the materials that you use, you just want to make sure that you truly have the right to use it. And if it is truly an academic setting where you're making truly commentary about a particular work that is an academic exercise, yes, you're going to have fair use latitude to do a lot of that. But that's a totally different ballgame than when you're marketing your school or doing a lot of other endeavors.
And at the end of the day, this is the type of work that Scott and I do all the time. So whether it's a trademark, whether it's a copyright, whether it's a patent, we're here to help you navigate that. So if it's trademark and you need a search done or a registration taken care of, we're here to help you with that. If it is reviewing materials for determining whether there's fair use, we can certainly do that too. And if it's a patentable invention that you're not exactly sure how to handle, that's another thing we can help you tease out, whether it's reviewing policies, agreements that you might have with faculty members, or trying to figure out if you can actually license the technology and generate income from it.
And we've also worked with a lot of schools to develop their policies on how they're going to handle the intellectual property, the issues we talked about who's going to own it, how it's going to be used, and what can be done with it. Those are all sensitive issues that involve a lot of constituencies. We've worked with large schools and small schools on that. We know that there are a lot of sensitive issues in that, and we are willing to take those into account and make sure that it's the policy that's right for you.